Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hopefully, you can hear me. Do let me know if the sound is coming through clear. Hopefully, it is. We're going to find out in a moment. Make sure everything is going. I do have captions on should you need them, and hopefully, they're just going to come through okay and everything will be alright. Either way, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your Saturday night, and it is time for Art Night. If you were with us last week, you got to see the beginning of this painting. If you weren't with us last week, well, now you're going to get to see what we're doing. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. And as always, thank you for joining me. We're not going to stand on a lot of ceremony. I kind of want to get right into this. But before we do, there will be either in the description of the video or the chat, depending on where you join me, a link. And where does that link go to? That goes to my website. And why do you want to go to my website? Let me tell you in short, the reason to go to my website is because that is where you're going to be able to get my art, my originals, my art prints, my merchandise. I do have a sketchbook, which is kind of small and travel size for your convenience. But I don't just have a sketchbook, I also have things like brush bags, a nice tote bag, great things for carry your art supplies around in, or maybe just like you want one of those brush bags for, say, some accessories, or you want to use it as a makeup bag, or even a small clutch or something like that. Completely capable of doing those things. But I also have sweaters and leggings and crop tops, and I have this some shirts. So there's a whole bunch of stuff for you to get. Please consider buying some of my merchandise because it would mean the world to me. And if you do get some of my merchandise, I'm going to send you a big ol' thank you because you're awesome. You got to thank the people that support you, right? So I have some brushes here and I have my palette ready. And we're going to go ahead. I'm going to jump into doing some painting. I don't want to wait too long. You know, it's an exciting moment every time I get to jump back and get going on one of these paintings again. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get the brushes I want. I actually already have some paints set up on my palette, so we already have a handful of paints already set and ready to go. You know, things like that are just necessary. I'm going to be starting off with a really small brush, because one of the things I want to do is there's all blocked out really nicely. Even though this is all blocked out really nicely, I'm going to go ahead and start picking out more details and get that moving now. So I'm going to do that with this little flat brush here. Get a little bit of paint on it. I'm going to come in here. Let's start putting some things back in. And one of the kind of ideas I have here is I want to start to rebuild some of my shadowed areas. I had some really strong shadows, but they were actually just a bit too strong before. So I've gone ahead, last video I went ahead and I actually lightened them up a bit. But that's just something I'm doing right now, is I'm coming in here and starting to get some of these shadowed areas rebuilt. Whoop. Be careful doing that. I accidentally shifted my canvas. Oh, I don't want to do that. And it sounds like cats are making mischief. I can't even be surprised. I can't be surprised at all by that. My cats cannot go even a couple of minutes without making a little mischief. You know, that's just the state of things. I'm not gonna get mad. I'm just gonna accept that my cats make mischief, And that's that. So I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful Saturday, wonderful weekend. If you're, I think it, do forgive me, I'm not actually sure on this. At least in the U.S., I know that it is Memorial Day weekend. I don't know, is Memorial Day celebrated other places? If you know the answer to that question, please feel free to put that in the chat, just so I know, because I'm not actually sure. Not actually sure on that, and I would like to know. Wow. I do not know what my cat is getting into right now, but she is making mischief. She is making mischief. So we started kind of coming up with some thoughts on this character last week. I don't necessarily have a full-blown plan, as it were, but there are some things which I thought seemed natural last time, and some of that I'm going to hold on to and continue. You know, this is a fantasy character, clearly based off the clothing and kind of the glowing eyes. I mean, how many people do you know with glowing eyes, right? Actually, if you know anyone with glowing eyes, put that in the chat. I would love to hear about it. So yeah, right now I'm kind of coming in, and I'm using a burnt sienna to kind of start to build in some shadows. It's going to be a long process. Sometimes I actually start thinking, you know, maybe I should try oil painting. But I'm just not set up for that yet. I have watercolors, I have acrylic, I have charcoal, I have pencils. I have all these things. I don't necessarily have the right kind of setup to do oil painting, but that actually would be really interesting to me, you know, just as something to do. Let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear everyone's opinion on that. If you think that's something that would be fun if I started trying that. But feel free in chat to share any of your thoughts. If you're doing anything good for the weekend, as it is and again, I know it's a holiday weekend in the U.S. I don't know, so feel free to let me know if Memorial Day is celebrated in other parts of the world, because I'm not sure, and I would like to know. So, the only thing that's really set right now for this character is a kind of a character idea that she is an esquire, or and that's just a nice fancy way to say lawyer. But that's the only thing that's really set in stone. But I think that's kind of fun. You know, she's just this fantasy lawyer, as it were, who wields a great deal of power. And I think that she would take advantage of that power in any way she could. Any way she could. To achieve her ends. So right now I'm really just having fun kind of building some nice implied shadow areas, and some actual shadow areas, just adding emphasis to where the lighting and everything is, I really think that she should be well hidden within shadows. Very well hidden within shadows. It adds an interesting quality to the whole thing, and I just enjoy the overall look of it. Well, I'm going to put that brush aside for just a second. Get another one. There's a whole bunch of stuff that really is going to need to be done to add the appropriate levels of emphasis to certain features on her. So that's something I'm going to also work on. So I'm going to give this kind of rim lighting over here. And I'm just using a medium azo yellow to try to produce a little bit of rim lighting over here. I think that it's going to add something nice to the overall piece. It also is pulling her more out of the background. And helping me give some more definition to the design. Helping pick out some of our details and everything here. For me, art is a wonderful release, a wonderful exercise. My chance to really embrace my own creative spark. And I do have a big creative spark. Just so much that, I don't know, fills me with joy. So we're going to use just the tip of this brush. Add some more. Yellow into those eyes. Because they do need to glow. You know, have a nice brightness to them. A nice brightness. And more is going to be done to pick everything out. But right now, you know, this is planning. This is execution. This is making things make sense. Make it make sense! I forgot my gray. Like, I have all these wonderful colors on my palette, but I forgot my gray. And that is unacceptable. So I'm going to get this long number 2 flat brush here. And I'm just going to go back in the hair. And start to add some more definition back in. Because it's starting to get really flat right now. So we want to get rid of some of that flatness. And get rid of some of the lack of definition. Also give some things some more depth in areas. So that's just something I'm doing right here really quick. And while I have that, I'm going to get a little bit of white. Mix it in with the gray because I want a mid-gray. I don't want all of it to be that really harsh gray. So, picking some areas out real quick. Just slowly adding in more body, more texture. But I have a lot of ideas for things that I would like to do. And we're going to do our best to make it happen. Gonna make it happen. So sometimes you need to really commit yourself to certain concepts with art, and sometimes you also need to realize that if you want to do something spectacular, you need to understand it's going to take time. So this dress, even right now, is still very flat. So I'm going to start picking some details out, because I think that there's areas of this dress that would look really cool if you could see the embellishments and whatnot that would be put on a garment like this. So that's something I'm going to just start building in down here. I'm not going to concern myself with, getting all my lines perfect. Because even just adding them in right now is going to do a lot. It's going to change the entire dynamic of this outfit. Begin to add some lacing and embroidery, and just these extra details. Some of it will end up a little haphazard as I go, but that's okay, because in art, sometimes things are done multiple times. Sometimes you need to really dig in. So one thing I'm doing here as I move forward is I'm consistently kind of changing the level of white and gray in my paint. I don't want it to seem overly repetitive. I want variation in here. And the best way to achieve that right now is just varying levels of my gray and white, different mixes. Just keeping everything really loose, kind of imprecise. And also kind of having movement to the lines, because realistically the lace and everything, it's going to be all sorts of all over the place, it's just going to be all over the place. You can't keep lace trim perfect, and I don't think you should try. I think you should embrace the natural qualities of materials. To have sometimes extreme variation. varying levels of wear. So again, I'm just going into this corset and trying to pick out some of the embellishments and what would be the seams and things like that. Adding greater depth and visual appeal. And also really leaning into the fantastical. So that's another thing, kind of getting the benefit of that here. And because of the way I'm doing this, nothing is going to be like a perfect shade. So we don't have to worry about it looking overly unnatural. But with just a little bit of work in here, this is a tremendous difference in itself. And hopefully you can kind of see that and appreciate the unique aspect. Alright. Because when it comes down to it, like what we're doing today is very unique. So I'm going to get a number 2 round brush, and I have this beautiful teal. I have some plans for this teal. Because what I need to do in here is to continue building up what is the various areas of trim. This is a person of some wealth and some ability. So she's going to have some really nice fabrics and some really nice garments. With lots of materials to them. And because there's a lot of different materials here, we really need to show that aspect of things. So there's going to be some extra cuts in the fabric and some extra areas of detailing. Hopefully you're kind of enjoying this journey of creation. So I like this teal. It creates a really nice look, but there's something else I need to do. So I'm going to get some of that teal, and then let's see, what would be the right color? And get some phthalo blue and mix those together really quick using the same brush. Now, because this is a fancy dress, we're going to presume that it actually has multiple layers of fabric to create the final look. And that's what I'm doing. So this is a phthalo blue mixed with teal so that it kind of matches, but it's also its own thing here.
We're making what would be, I guess, the part of a petticoat or an underdress.
Some sort of, well, it's an underdress. It's a layer of the dress. You know, dresses have so many layers and so many names for all those layers.
So I'm not going to worry if I don't know all the names, and I'm not going to worry if this would be accurate to any specific period of time.
That's not part of our goal. Not part of our goal.
What is part of our goal is creating a really stunning
final piece of art. So now there's kind of these layers of fabric. You have the actual outer portion of the dress, and then you have this trimming, and then you have something in between, and then some sort of lacing or otherwise underneath, but there's still a dress below there. And we're getting more and more details on this dress. More and more details.
And because I've just gone through and done that, I'm actually going to trim out
Some of that.
because even though the corset is beginning to get embellishments, it's still kind of plain. So we're going to take some of that plainness away.
A little trim on that. So now there's trimming and there's lacing and all these wonderful different qualities here. I need a little bit of white because I need to do another variation of my tones. Tints, hues. We need a lot of different tones, tints, hues, and just make the most out of the paints we're using.
Well, we have them at our fingertips. And even though I just spent all that time kind of putting these panels in, I think that there should be just a couple pieces of fabric, almost to draw the eye into the center here.
So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just adding this panel
On the corset as intended to draw the eye and also create a new implied waistline. You'll see a lot of things like that in a lot of different kinds of clothing where they use almost I won't say an optical illusion so much as just, well, yeah, I guess it's kind of an optical illusion of sorts.
And that's one of the effects we're getting here. You know, really kind of emphasizing this thinner frame. Well, I have that on there. And get a very stiff round brush.
Just use that to clean some of this up. Getting some more black in here.
Now you want to use, for things like this,
Like, make sure it's a very stiff brush. You do not want it to do its own thing.
and that's what I'm making sure here, that it's not just doing its own thing, that it's specifically
Putting paint where I want paint.
kind of making sure everything's neat, tidy, getting that paint a little clearer, a little better arranged. I know I don't use a lot of black normally, and
Actually, I shouldn't even say that, because sometimes I use black when it's necessary. You know, and
there are times where black is very necessary. And I'm going to add a little in there. That's not going to stay, of course, because there's a lot more to do here. I'm going to get another stiff flat brush. And I'm just going to get some gray and some white worked into a couple spots here.
again, I'm using a nice stiff brush, so it's doing exactly what I want it to do.
And nothing else. Get a little bit gray. You can see it doesn't take a lot here to just
Add these areas of emphasis that I wanted. That's just one of the things I'm doing, is emphasizing what I want to emphasize.
breaking up the hair so it's not quite so stuck to itself. Sure, you can see kind of the idea here. And if you can't, feel free to ask questions at any point in time while we paint. These are not just moments where I paint and you don't do anything. You can go ahead and ask questions at any point in time.
Use a little bit of black in here.
Sometimes I need to get a little black in and really add that emphasis I'm hoping for. But it's all part of the process.
The process of really creating the areas of division that I'm hoping for.
When it comes to a painting like this,
And, you know, I don't do many like this. Part of the process is figuring out what I think is going to work the best.
And it can be hard to say what's going to work the best.
Using a combination of different things here, from kind of stiff brush techniques
to a lot of layering. And I mean a lot of layering.
can't escape the layering.
Just take another moment to say again, if you'd really like to help support the artwork that I do and all these wonderful fun live streams, if you would like to add to my ability to continue producing all this fun stuff for people like you, make sure that you're clicking the bell to get all my notifications, subscribing, following. If you're over on Twitch, follow, subscribe, please. That would be absolutely amazing. It would be amazing if you did it. And I would be incredibly grateful. Or hop over to my website. Check out some of my art prints, some of my merch, some of my original artwork. Pick yourself up something. You can also sign up to one of my art workshops, because there's a whole bunch of them, and they're fun. Alright. So, need to go in here, using another flat brush. And I'm adding some areas of gold. Now we have lots of different folds to this dress. And I want to really emphasize some of them. And really emphasize that this is something of quality, of value, owned by someone who is of the ability to buy such things. But I don't want to entirely cover up all of the browns and these earth tones, because there is something really nice about having lots of different tone and coloration. It reminds you that, this is material. And no matter how metallic or shiny or bright something is, it's never all bright all the time. But just doing that little bit, those are areas that the light's picking up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in with an amber brown, which is semi-transparent, and I'm going to start putting that back in some spots. There's a bunch of layers that I want to emphasize. But let's get this amber brown really quick, because I like the way it blends with the gold. I like the way it is just adding more depth. And that's one of the big things here, is we're getting a lot more depth of color this way. Since the gold isn't completely dry, it's going to blend right in. And I think it's doing a really good job already. That actually, oof, yeah, that makes a big difference. That makes a big difference. We're getting a lot more clarity for our final piece. I'm going to come in here. Some of this apricot. Build some more unity to our flesh tones. This is what the apricot's big job is here. Unity. See, I'm using a very small brush to apply it. And it doesn't go everywhere. Does not go everywhere. I think this is actually doing really well in here. There are some spots I'm going to still have to clean up. But because the apricot is semi-translucent, we're getting a really nice effect. Semi-translucent, semi-transparent. So that just brought that all back out really well. Now the face doesn't have the best shape yet, but it's all in building our layers and our details, and we have a bunch of those. And I kind of have a strange motion to the hair. I'm going to keep it. I actually think I'm going to keep it. But I might add more hair that's kind of flowing behind. Or I don't know. I'll think on that. I'm going to think on that as I keep going.
Okay, so is there anything else you'd like to say before
What in the world is
you
that?
off the stage? Wow, okay. Wow.
That was weird. Especially considering everything's turned off. I apologize for that. That was really weird. But, you know, things happen. Things happen. That was just awkward. Alright. So there's still a few things to do here. One thing I want to do, I've been trying to think like what's the right color for the eyebrows as I keep building. There's also some things to kind of look at with the hair. So I'm going to pick out a few more details there. Got a really tiny brush here.
that tiny brush to my benefit. Just a few things to do here, and I think it's going to make a big difference. Sometimes you really have to rely on your instincts. So that's one thing I'm doing here, is kind of relying on my instincts. There we go.
A few more details in there. A few more nice details. Alright, so I need to bring the eyes out more. I need eyebrows. I can probably put some more detailing on the dress, amongst other areas here. So I'm going to think for a moment before I get too far ahead of myself. That is always a possibility. You never know when it's going to happen, right? Right. So we have gold, and we have black, and we have teal. And we have all that lace kind of at the bottom. What are some things that I could do to just make this look better? What are some things that I could do? Oops. And I keep hitting my easel today. I should probably stop doing that, shouldn't I?
So there's just an area here that I actually want to touch up. I'm gonna make sure that there's a little more symmetry going on here. A little more symmetry.
Now that I have that,
I'm going to very gently begin to stipple this panel.
it's not going to look exactly right for a minute, but it's just something I want to do to really kind of pull a bunch of things out. Now that I've done that, I'm going to get a big old glob of white. I'm going to get another glob of teal. Little white, little teal. And then, with a flat brush, nice stiff one,
I'm going to start to pull this out even more.
now again, using a nice stiff brush is going to give me some really nice edges.
Going to make sure that I'm painting exactly where I want to and nowhere else. I get really focused like this, I realize I'm not talking much.
And we will make all of that work better
As this continues. Now I put some white right in the middle, and now I'm getting the teal in it. But one of the reasons I've done that is so that we're going to have a nice covering,
but it's also going to have a more clear kind of tonal variation there. So I wanted to get that in, have a nice clear tone variation. Oh my goodness, my gracious. This is fun. If you've never painted before, I'm going to recommend it highly. If you have painted before but you haven't painted in a while, I'm going to recommend that you start painting again. I still don't have a name for this character or a huge amount of story, but the whole, lawyer
vampire-esque concept, I am staying with that.
because I think it sounds cool.
We have a vampire, lawyer, fantasy character with mystery and very brooding. Maybe not brooding so much as just difficult to know.
Let's say difficult to know.
Since I have this black here, that was just a bit too much.
I wanted to have very defined eyebrows. I think that does well.
She probably, does her eyebrows up as opposed to just trusting them to do whatever they want. I mean, that makes sense to me. It's not exactly a smoky eye, more just like some really
Thick eyeshadow in there. Let all of that rest for a second before I continue. But it makes the eyes brighter. It makes everything stick out a little bit better. That is one aspect I think is really important with your various details. Really take the time to consider how they're going to appear. I think so far this is really cool. I like that she really doesn't seem like a person exactly. She doesn't seem like she's not a person so much as She doesn't seem natural, which I think helps us a lot. Get my big flat brush here for a moment. Yeah. Have some good details going on. Now, there's still a whole bunch I need to do. So, what I'm going to do really quick is I have a vermilion here, and I have some black. I'm going to take a little time and kind of try to make the mouth even more defined. I think that's going to enhance this character tremendously. It's going to enhance this character tremendously. I'll start with my vermilion. Don't want a super thick lip exactly, but I also don't want it to get lost. That's something that can happen really easy when you're doing something like this. You can lose details. Alright, now that I have that in there, to bring the lips out a little bit more, I'm going to very gently apply a little bit of black. Working in each of my really important areas. While I'm doing this, I'm also increasing the visual drama, which I think is going to sell our piece even better. I realize some of this is really dark right now, but don't worry, everything will make sense in the end. It's all about building up our layers, building our details, solidifying our concept.
Which I think, the way this is going, the concept is getting very well solidified.
Whew.
Talk about a lot of work. Now, it does not help that right now, at this very moment in time, it is very warm in here.
That does not help.
I know that this is getting really dark in here, but again,
You know, we're working on kind of just
upgrading our details continuously, and one of the things that we're going to get with that is
moments where stuff starts to look weird. You have to get through the weird. You have to keep going, keep doing.
And that is something I am doing here.
Whew. Sweaty, sweaty. I am getting sweaty, sweaty, sweaty. But I'm also creating something wonderful. And you can too.
I want you to remember that you can also create beautiful things. It is well within your ability.
Well within your power. Is she perfect? Nah.
Am I proud of my work? Of course I am.
There are times where we should just be proud of ourselves. Just accept that, yes, we can do that. We can do that.
So, for any reason lately, you've told yourself, I can't do that.
Why, yes, you can. So I just added a little bit of yellow to the bottom lip, again, to kind of pick out a detail area. Oh. There's all sorts of things that I look at this right now that I want to do, and I'm not sure what I should do as far as what's going to help me and what is going to hinder me. But I do have a bunch of ideas right now. So I've already added some detail areas and all sorts of fun trimming. Probably going to go ahead and pick some of that stuff out just a little bit more. I'm going to do that right now with his. Sometimes you just have to trust yourself.
What do I mean sometimes? Trust yourself.
I'm not going to give any of that sometimes malarkey.
You should trust yourself.
When it comes to art. You should trust yourself when it comes to art. You should trust yourself when it comes to what you think looks right. And should go for it whenever you can. In any way you can. You're going to be a whole lot happier with what you do if you do that. I still have some decisions to make. The top is really plain right now, and considering everything I've been doing, kind of adding more and more detail as I go, I may just want to remove some of that plainness. Remove it. In my mind, it makes sense there's still a seam there. So I just created a little implied seam. Well, not even implied, it's just there. Some of the stuff you gotta do with artwork. Add your details. Add your interest. Make it yours. It's yours. So I guess if I was to do anything with the top right now, part of me thinks that I should kind of make it a bright teal. Kind of that teal white I had before. So we're going to see how that looks. Maybe a little bit lighter this time. I don't know. We're going to see. I'm going to try something.
It's either going to look really good or it's not. We'll make that decision after we do it.
I don't know. That kind of looks nice. It looks like it matches. Also gives me the opportunity to play more with the hair. Play more with the shadows as I continue along. See what other things can be done. I need to figure out some more designs to put in on this, because I think that will help the overall concept. Now that I'm looking at the way the corset is, with the panel on that matching the color of the top, like that's really tying together. We have a teal shade down in the bottom, and there's all that gold. Her skin's kind of getting lost. Like, she doesn't have a super amount of detail to her, which is not a bad thing. Her face is kind of getting a little lost too. I kind of am curious, should I pull the face back forward? There's a really interesting background to this piece, but I have to consider, again, what am I going to do with that background? Do I want to get really ornate here? or do I want to keep it all really simple? And because of the color palette for this particular painting, there's a lot going on. Like, there is a lot going on. I'm not going to say it's too much, but I am going to say it's a lot. A lot. So I just had a cool idea. I'm going to see how it looks. You know, this could be a terrible idea or a good idea. We don't know yet. Starting to add some detail into the panel. So far,
I don't know. But it's okay because this isn't something that has to be committed to 100%. This could be something that is just an experiment.
As I move forward, playing with shapes and concepts. But it kind of looks now like a little bit of a spider web, which I think is fun. Maybe we can get more ornate with this too. Maybe. A lot of the fabric doesn't have a huge amount of flow to it, so that's something worth keeping in mind.
There's also not a lot of shadow down here between the lower portions of the dress and the upper. So since I'm already kind of
Adding some black, I can add a little bit more to differentiate those areas more. Stuff like this is not overly difficult to do.
and it's not overly difficult to change my mind on later if I want to. But right now I think the most important thing is really helping draw those distinctions between each part of the dress.
And I think that has already been accomplished very well.
While we're at it,
now that one over there is a bit thick, but it does its job.
it does its job.
Yeah.
It may not be as important on this side, but
Just adding some areas of movement and fold I like those. I like them. That's a heck of an improvement. Heck of an improvement. Ooh. Now that I'm looking at everything, I just had an idea and I'm going to try it out. Even though I kind of put that design in there on the center panel, I'm going to take a little bit of gold. Again, just trying things out. It's not going to completely cover everything, but it is going to change how it looks and hopefully add an indication of even more embellishment and design and kind of that fanciness. Like she has a gilded dress of some sort. I mean, why wouldn't she want one, right? Nice fancy gilded dress. Definitely deserves one. Hopefully you agree. She definitely deserves one. So, just had a quick idea. This may or may not look right. Just adding some implied folds in this material. Maybe some ripples. Nothing major, but I mean, if she has everything pulling into here, there should be some sort of tugging at the fabric. So we're going to imply that slightly. There we go. That's now slightly implied. I'm going to take that. I'm just going to add in a more clear separation between these parts. A little bit of separation there. Yeah. The further along I get, the better this is looking. There's only one color I haven't used that was in my palette originally, and that is this wonderful Mars Orange. Now, I really liked that Mars Orange, but I'm not sure if it fits anymore with what we're doing. I don't know if it's just too much. Too much. I think it is. there's a bunch of areas here that are getting more attention, more detail. There's a bunch of areas that I actually think deserve a lot more detail than they've already gotten. But, you know,
We're just figuring everything out.
figuring out as we go.
Continuing to make improvements as we go. I'd like to thank everyone who's joined me today. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being awesome. Thank you for continuing to be the absolute best.
So I am thinking there's a couple of areas that I do need to really go ahead and hone in the final image on. There's also some super deep shadows here. A lot of the piece is obscured. Part of me really wants to take a really highly translucent ink and do an ink wash on certain areas, because I think it would be awesome. And then go back and then pick the hair back out. But I also think that that would be a terrible idea, because I just spent so much time trying to get this to look right, get it to really sing, really pop, really be good. Oh, so many decisions. And also I wish I had just a few other colors here, because I think that this would benefit from some real changes to the background. Like, it just looks like kind of, maybe it's a hall, maybe it's just decorative paneling. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. The perspective is odd. She's kind of turning her body, because well, if you look at kind of the way her arms are positioned and the way her face is positioned, it's almost like she's turning, which is probably why her hair is just whipping up. Maybe she's just turned and that's still settling. Yeah, I think I actually might just darken in the background a lot more. I think that's what I'm going to do. I think that's how this is going to go. And I might add more gold, because I like the gold. And it looks fun. And it adds character. I don't actually think I need to do too much more with her face. It's really fun, really different. Her eyes, very dark upper eye makeup. She's got a very interesting facial structure with the yellow eyes that just adds even more. I think the only thing that would make that stand out more is if I darken the shadows even more across the whole piece. Which it makes me want to take some ink and then apply an ink to this whole thing. Which, if I did that, I would have to lay it down, because some of the inks are really liquidy, really watery. But if I did that, then I could actually come back with my paints and I could pick the hair out even more. But I could make some really intense shadow, like super intense shadow with the inks, which ooh, that would benefit everybody. And if I use just really light amounts of the ink on certain spots, I can up the intensity, I can up the coloration, I can start to tie everything together better. So I think that's going to look awesome if I do it that way. I'm going to give it some thought before I go ahead and just absolutely slather this thing, because sometimes you gotta think ahead, right? You have to think ahead. Thank you everyone for being here today. I'm not going to keep you much longer. You've been awesome. Please go visit my website. Please consider getting yourself some merch or bag. Even if you get a brush bag or a sketchbook, I think the sketchbook would be beneficial to just about anyone, because you don't just have to sketch in it. You could write notes, you could use it in an agenda, so many other different things. But consider getting something off there. A brush bag be very useful for pencils or office supplies or all sorts of things. Grab an original piece of artwork. I would be so grateful, because I need your support to keep doing this. You are the backbone of small business. You, the people, are the backbone of small business. And I appreciate you all very much. Take care, be excellent, and I will see you all again very soon. But until then, enjoy your weekend. Hey, and party on. Be excellent, my friends.